Yeah! Eat dirt, sucker. Street fighter.
Hey everybody, welcome to the newest episode of Capital Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch.
Rob Jarrell.
And today we're going to recap UFC 164, which happened on August 31st. And then we're going to preview the Showtime ShoBox series that's happening on September 7th. We're going to start off with UFC 164, which in the previous episode we talked about Frank Mir versus Josh Barnett in the title fight between Benson Henderson and Anthony Pettis. Now with the Mir and Barnett fight, we predicted that Barnett would take this fight because of his size and the even skill set that these guys both have. And when you have that, you have usually the person who's bigger is the person who wins. And we thought that it would be a match that would go down to the ground, and that's where Barnett would take the fight. But the size ended up being a factor, but it was in a different location. Why don't you break it down for him, Rob?
All right, now these two guys, these two heavyweights came out swinging, and they went straight for the clinch. I thought Frank Mir did a lot on the stand-up. He caught Barnett with some good shots, but he also took some good shots. And Barnett closed the distance, brought him in the clinch, and as they were trading, you could see that Barnett was getting the better of the shots, and he just grinded him and pushed him toward the cage, where he continued to grind it out and do a lot of work with knees and uppercuts to the body. And he pretty much manipulated and did whatever he wanted against the cage to Frank Mir. We're talking about put his forearm on his neck, bringing his head down so he can bring a knee up, and then he landed some vicious uppercuts to Frank Mir's head. And it only went one round. Barnett landed one vicious knee to the side of Frank Mir's head. He dropped to the ground. The referee jumped in, stopped the fight. Personally, I thought it was a little bit early. I would have let it gone on a little bit longer to see what Frank Mir could have done to maybe get out the situation, but they called it a night for Frank Mir and ended it right there.
Oh yeah, and that's what we were talking about with the weight. I mean, Josh Barnett was a lot bigger than Frank Mir in that fight. I think at the weigh-in, he was 10 pounds heavier than Frank Mir. So come fight night with the rehydration, that's something we'll go over at another time. But Josh Barnett was a lot bigger than Frank Mir. And using that cage, he was able to control him. There was nothing Frank could do about it. He was stuck on that cage, and every time he tried to get off, Josh just put him back on that cage, dealt out the punishment, and got the victory. So let's move on to the title fight between Benson Henderson and Anthony Pettis. And this one pretty much went the way we predicted as well, with the exception of how the fight ended. We thought if the fight was to end early, it would be by Pettis maybe landing one of his Showtime kicks again and finishing the fight. But he actually showcased some high-level jiu-jitsu and submitting Benson Henderson in the first round. During the first round, Ben did a really good job of going forward, having Pettis on the back foot so he couldn't really set up those kicks, put him against the cage, had some great leg kicks in there to keep Pettis from springing off and getting back to the stand-up area, and he was very successful in that. And the second that he let him off the cage and begin to back up, Showtime took advantage of him and landed some great body kicks. You want to elaborate on it, Rob?
Yeah, so what we figured that Ben Henderson would need to do is to make the fight ugly. And to make the fight ugly, he had to get in close and again work the clinch, put him up against the cage. And we discussed this. You pointed out that he delivered some front kicks to Pettis' leg, which may have tired out to keep him from performing any of his acrobatic kicks. He's a Taekwondo specialist who's proficient at jiu-jitsu and very athletic. So he wanted to make sure he didn't have the space to get off whenever he wanted.
Right.
Anthony Pettis was able to weather the storm and to get away from the cage, which he started landing some kicks to the body. So Ben Henderson, who is a southpaw, and Anthony Pettis, who is orthodox, he was able to land roundhouses to the body of Ben Henderson on his left side, which pushed Henderson back. I think he landed 5 straight kicks, and you can see that on every kick that it started to back Henderson up more and more and more, which created more space between the two.
Oh yeah. And with those kicks, Henderson began to back up, like Rob said, and the fight started going towards what we thought would be Showtime's strength, which was throwing the kicks. And he went for a wild spinning kick and missed, and Ben Henderson took him to the ground. And he began to do the ground and pound, but he left that arm out there, and the athleticism of Pettis and his jiu-jitsu pedigree took advantage of it, snapped him into an arm bar, which Henderson almost got out of, but a small adjustment from Pettis led to the tap out, and it was some great high-level stuff. We're going to have a jiu-jitsu guy on the show later on to talk about some of those high-level techniques that we see in the octagon and in the ring when you see MMA matches. So look out for that in the future. Now, let's move on. Oh, before I move on, congratulations to Anthony Pettis on becoming the new champion and calling out Jose Aldo for a rematch. I think that'll be a great fight.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Oh, yeah. So now let's move on and talk about that ShoBox main event between Chris Arreola and Seth Mitchell. Now, this is a fight between pretty much the top of the American crop of heavyweights. These are the guys they want to push to get the title shot against the Klitschko's. Chris Arreola already had his shot once. He's working to get back to either Vladimir or Vitaly. And Seth Mitchell is trying to get his way into that title contention for the first time, being a prospect and now contender, trying to get into that slot. And these two guys are meeting to see who can get that next shot. We don't expect this fight to go past 4 rounds. Maybe 3 tops. I don't even say 4 rounds. This is gonna be a 3-round Donnybrook, for lack of a better word. These guys bring the leather. They throw hands a lot. They both have a lot of power, but they don't have great chins. Let's talk about it, Rob.
Well, I won't say both of them don't have great chins, but Arreola has weathered the storm. He has taken some vicious shots from some murderous punchers. He seems to get knocked down early, but he never is knocked out. He took a lot of punishment from Vladimir Klitschko in their fight. Vitaly Klitschko in their fight, where it had to be a TKO. He never went down, but they just stopped the fight because he was taking so much punishment. He was knocked down versus Bermain Stavern, but it still went the distance. And he also lost to Tomas Adamek, who was a smaller, faster fighter, but can never really hurt Arreola. And Arreola was starting to come on toward the later rounds of the fight. Now, Seth Mitchell doesn't have quite the experience that Arreola does, but he's not as shot worn. The only thing is, we don't know what his chin is like. He fought his last 2 fights versus Jonathan Banks, who is not a very powerful puncher for a heavyweight, but he was able to hurt Seth Mitchell in their first fight and had him against the ropes in their second fight. So it's not about who hits harder, it's about who can take the hardest shots and come back. And in my opinion, Arreola is able to take more punishment and dole out as much as Mitchell is. Plus, he has the experience to adjust during the fight. Now, the one thing about Arreola is if he is going to come in shape.
Oh, yeah.
He has always been out of shape for these fights, tipping the scales at 250, 260 pounds, when Seth Mitchell, who is an ex-football player, has always come in shape, roughly 230 to 240 pounds, but in excellent shape. So we're going to see who takes the better shots as they throw their power punches and who gasses. Because with heavyweights, they tend to gas early the higher the activity is. So if Arreola tires quicker, I give Mitchell a chance. But if Arreola catches him early, I give the fight to Arreola.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. And the thing about Seth Mitchell, we've seen him hurt against Chaz Witherspoon. he was actually stopped by Jonathan Banks in that first fight in the second round. And when you're saying he's not that big of a puncher, which is true, he's not that big of a puncher. And he was also hurt in that second fight with Jonathan Banks. So there's a lot more question marks on his chin than Arreola's. I think Arreola has a cold chin rather than a weak chin, whereas he can get caught early and drop, but his recuperative powers are much better. So with that, he can take the punch, he can get back up, and he can keep fighting. So I think that is what's going to lead to the victory for Arreola. And I think they're going to trade knockdowns in this fight because they both can punch. But the difference is going to be what Rob said, is that Arreola can come back from those punches, deal out more punishment, and I don't think Mitchell can take that punishment.
The only thing that we can hopefully see the difference with Mitchell is his defensive tactics. Not just avoiding the punches, but getting in trouble, tying up his opponents, getting away from the ropes, and not getting into a contest of wills knowing that he's hurt because he doesn't have a great chin. And with the heavyweight fight, all punches are hard. There are no soft touches. These guys are 240, 250 pounds, and every punch that lands is going to hurt.
Oh, yeah. And with Arreola, you've got a guy who is very relentless. He will keep coming at Mitchell no matter what. If Arreola is dropped, he's going to recuperate. He's going to try to recuperate by throwing more punches. And his punches hurt. I mean, he stopped plenty of guys that have knocked him down. Like I remember in the Travis Walker fight, I think he was dropped like 3 times. And he came back to stop Walker because Walker couldn't take his punches the way Arreola could take his, even though he was getting dropped a lot. He ended up dropping and finishing Walker. So I think this fight is going to end up similar to that fight where Arreola gets dropped, looks like he's in trouble, but fights back and finishes Seth Mitchell in somewhat violent fashion.
Now, this fight could lead to bigger things. Arreola lost his last fight versus Bermane Stiverne. This could lead to a fight against Deontay Wilder, the Olympic bronze medalist. Or for Mitchell, this could segue into a fight, an eliminator, to go to fight one of the Klitschko's, maybe against Stiverne, or say Tyson Fury if he gets out of the fight with David Haye. So a lot of it remains to be seen. I am definitely going to tune in for this fight, and you should too. It's not going the distance. Someone's going down.
Oh yeah, and they're going down early. So like I said, get your popcorn, go to the bathroom, get your water, have everything sitting at the table, and don't move because you're going to see a lot of punches being thrown, people getting hit in the face a lot, and somebody's going to go down. And everybody loves a knockout. So tune in and be entertained. That's all we got for you guys today. Thank you for joining in. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe on YouTube so you can get all of our updates, because we're going to be shooting a lot now and we're going to have a lot of great content coming to you, especially with the Floyd Mayweather Saul Alvarez fight coming up in the next 2 weeks. Peace.
This is round 1 and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming and cost. My fists are on fire, I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage, keep thinking that it's a game. I kick rhyme, hurricane, I told them I don't play, I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.